Meet the lot, native token of Lukki Exchange and the most potential tool for investing this year. Trade now on P2B, B2B and Lukki.io.
All right, we are live here. Welcome everyone to this wonderful, well, I'm in Australia at the moment. So today it's actually a Thursday. Where you are, it's probably a Wednesday. I'm not quite sure where in the world you're tuning in from, but I'm really excited to be in Australia here chatting with Roger Ver. Welcome to the show, Roger.
Thank you, Naomi.
So you're in Tokyo at the moment. I'm in Perth. Very similar time zone, but everyone else is tuning in probably from the States, I presume. A lot of people there, or it is evening. So welcome everyone who's here. We're going to be talking about the Bitcoin Cash fork. Now, this has been, I think it's one of the most exciting events that's happened in crypto, just because it's been super interesting. We've had proofs of tech for a long time, but the thing about Bitcoin is it's this wonderful balance of tech and human motivation, and we haven't really tested all those sides. So to actually have a full-blown 51% attack against a fork or against a chain has been, and to see how that played out, I think that watching the whole thing, it's been very interesting. And I wanted to talk to you about what happened and where we are now. And a lot has happened since then. So let's start at the very beginning. Let's start with the time that it forked, right? There was a huge, I was sitting there watching, I was doing a live stream. I don't know if you caught that with Zach Lloyd, Chris Pacey were sitting there like watching to see like who's winning this hash bar. But what was that like for you when all that happened?
It's an exciting time. I was in, where was I? I was Athens, Greece at the time it was happening, and really, really tired because of the way the time zones and the jet lag worked. But the excitement of everything overcame the tiredness, and I was up pretty late watching everything to make sure that everything would go smoothly because as I was telling you right before we started recording, my goal in being involved in cryptocurrencies isn't to have one cryptocurrency win over another. My goal is to build the tools to enable any human being on the planet to be able to transact with any other human being anywhere on the planet instantly, basically for free and without having to get permission from anybody. And the reason I'm so excited about Bitcoin Cash is because I think it's the one that has the best chance of doing that. But if it winds up being Dash or Monero or Zcash or Zcard, take your pick. Like, I don't care which one it is, as long as we do it. And that's what's been so frustrating for me about the original Bitcoin scaling wars, that we literally delayed the adoption of cryptocurrencies worldwide by several years because of a bunch of economically ignorant people that don't care about using Bitcoin as money, and they think the fee should be high, and they want to impose a production quota on the block size. And that leads us to where we are today. We have most of the free market advocates on the Bitcoin Cash chain. There's some over in Dash and Ethereum and other places as well. But the people that want to make peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world were on the Bitcoin Cash chain, with some glaring exceptions. And the glaring exceptions are those that want to make Bitcoin Cash government friendly. And
Bitcoin Cash, government coin, where we have lots of patents. And that's the narrative that I started to hear, as we went on right before the fork, and it just kind of broke my heart, right? So I'm like you, I'm Bitcoin. I'm crypto agnostic. I love the idea of whatever money takes the power of the money supply out of the hands of government. Yes, fantastic. I will support all of that. I'll support whatever crypto platforms are out there. I will try to spread the word, try to onboard people to whatever currency is easiest for them and makes sense for them. And all of them. I'm a big advocate of a lot of different
anything that works, right?
Anything that works, exactly. There's a lot of shit out there.
Anything that doesn't have $50 fees to use it per transaction.
So. Oh, you get so political so quickly. You're just like, oh, right.
No, I think it's important to people to objectively look at the evidence and the facts and not worry about name calling. And if you look at the evidence, Bitcoin Cash works far better and far more reliably than BTC is at this point. And I had more financial and philosophical motivation than just about anybody in the entire world to see BTC be a success. I owned a whole giant pile of BTC. I owned Bitcoin.com. I was the first person in the entire world to start investing in that ecosystem. So I had more financial and philosophical motivation to see that be a success than just about anyone anywhere. The reason I switched to supporting Bitcoin Cash is because the BTC camp economically committed suicide with their full block, essentially planned economic policy of making the network unusable for commerce. So it's not an emotional thing.
I know that there are some Bitcoin fans who tune into my channel as well. So before they're like, oh, screw this, they like leave and they don't want to hear it. I do want to make a point about that. So I've been using this site called bitbacker.io. And actually, I first of all just want to give a huge thank you to Spencer Lambert, the BCH chicken guy. If you guys haven't checked out
yes,
on Twitch, he's awesome. But he sent me a power chat, says, thanks for all the hard work you're doing, bringing us such great content. And he had Polly, who sent me Bitcoin Cash, and said, are you really broadcasting from the future, Naomi? Yes, I am. And there are jetpacks, and it's amazing here, guys. You wait until you guys hit Thursday. You're not going to believe it. But I did want to give a shout out to those people for using Bitbacker. I mean, a lot of people, and actually, I want to give a huge thank out to Tao Jones as well, who sent me a super chat through Google and said, Happy New Year. But keep in mind that Google takes 30% of whatever super chats, power chats you send through. And this site uses, Bitbacker uses crypto and does not take 30%. So, so just a heads up about that. But just about like talking the talk, walking the walk. You know, now we have options for people for cryptocurrency that they can use that are alternatives, like alternative to Patreon, alternative to super chats in crypto. And it's interesting to see the type of people who gravitate over there. Now, at the moment, Bitbacker accepts Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin, and they just implemented Smart Cash, working on some others as well. But I expected, honestly, to do with transaction fees, because I tend to use Bitcoin Cash more frequently than Bitcoin at the moment just because of fees. But it was interesting to me. I presume that most people would. But on Bitbacker, I'd say it's about even, the number of people who are using Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash for donations on the site. So that was very interesting to me. I mean, do you have thoughts on that? Do you think that it's going to just take a while for people to like feel the burn of the fees and realize that that's a deciding factor in their transactions?
well, the fees aren't that high on BTC at the moment because people have started using things like Smart Cash and Bitcoin Cash and Dash and all these other altcoins. So we saw, you know, we got decentralization in terms of which cryptocurrencies people are using, whereas previously Bitcoin really had a good shot at becoming the money for the entire world. And that first mover advantage has pretty much completely been destroyed by the economic central planning of the amount of block space the miners are allowed to produce. And, you know, good luck Smart Cash, good luck Bitcoin Cash, good luck, you know, all these other guys. But we've delayed the adoption of cryptocurrency around the world by years because of this stupid block size production quota. And that's really frustrating for me.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about a person that I always mention on this show that I love to hate. Anyone who watches my show, I always slip in a mention here. So you and Craig Wright used to be on the same site. And that always used to baffle me. You know, I was just like, why is Roger aligning himself with this man? I mean, he seemed like such an obvious scam artist to me. He's a very, very good scam artist. He's just a total fraud from my perspective. And everyone has their own opinion. I'm sure that there are going to be people who are going to, push back about that. That's totally fine. And I'm open to hearing your point of view as well. But I'm interested in your aha moment, Roger. So you put out a video not too long ago where you said, listen, it's not easy to admit when you're wrong. But here I am admitting that. And that's when you had a split, and a lot of things have happened since there. You've had lawsuits, you've had this hash war, you've had all of this stuff going on. So like, what was it for you that made you go, okay, I don't want to be associated with this person anymore?
So I think the first part of it is there's a lot of anti-propaganda stuff against me online. And I think a big part of it is because I'm advocating for the tools to be built to empower the individual to have complete control over their own lives, their own finances, and not have to get permissions from banks or governments. And boy, do I ever get attacked for something like that all day, every day. Craig Wright doesn't seem to be interested in those same sorts of things at all. And so I think people like to say, oh, Craig Wright and I are buddy and we're hanging out all the time, or me and Jihan, or me and whoever. I'm busy in my office working every day on my computer. Most of the time, I prefer to be alone with my computer. I've had dinner with Craig, I don't know, 3 times in my whole life, I think. Met him in person maybe 5 or 6 times in my whole life.
So all of those pictures of you guys having slumber parties, watching films together, they're all photoshopped?
I haven't seen any of those photos, so yeah, they must be photoshopped.
No,
I've never.
You're fine. They don't exist, but that would be hilarious. So if anyone wants to make those, go ahead.
Okay, maybe they've already been made. No, I had dinner with Craig in Tokyo twice, I think, and maybe one other time in Hong Kong, I think. Anyhow, the ideas are what are important, not the people or the names behind them. The actual ideas are what counts. So, and I think Craig has a lot of bad ideas at the moment, suing people, suing software developers for writing open source software code that other people can choose to run or not. That's pretty clearly a bad idea. And even when the world perceived me and Craig as being, best buds, I was still out there on to be used to verify that all the preceding digits are correct and you don't have some typo in the Bitcoin address there. Like, I'm not a software developer, but I know what a checksum is. I knew that Bitcoin addresses have checksums. How on earth could somebody claiming to be Satoshi very clearly, explicitly in writing in an email to me that I read in that other video, how can he not know that Bitcoin addresses have a checksum in them? And that really, really, really was extra confusing to me, because I do think Craig was involved in Bitcoin from the very, very earliest days, yet he doesn't know that the addresses have a checksum. So I don't know how you jive those two things with each other.
Well, I
still don't know.
A lot of people aren't disputing perhaps that he had some sort of involvement in Bitcoin. It's the fact he literally said in the email, "I am Satoshi." I mean, that seems blatantly false. Like this seems like a total lie from my perspective, because he's never been able to prove it. Every single time he's tried to supposedly prove it to someone, there's been a red flag across every instance. You've had, okay, that's actually been used before. Oh, there's actually no message that he signed on this one. Oh, there's he just. If you ask Satoshi, you want people to know, just prove it. It's pretty easy to prove it. Just sign a message. So the fact that he hasn't done that, I mean, it just seems like the hallmark of a scam artist. And again, this is my opinion, and this is just what I believe. But someone who muddies the waters and who, like, rather than answering simple questions, tries to make things more confusing. And if there are little red flags, that there are going to be more red flags the closer you look into this.
That's why we should focus on the ideas rather than the people. We should ask ourselves which cryptocurrency has the best chance of bringing more economic freedom to the entire world, and focus on those and focus on promoting those, and not worry about he said, she said, and he doesn't like me because this and that. Like, don't worry about the people. Focus on the ideas. Focus on the cryptocurrency that actually works as currency for the world. So, and a special shout out to Bitbacker. I was looking at it right before we started the chat. Like, it does look like a pretty cool tool. So another fantastic example of building tools to empower individuals to do things without having to get permission from others. That's what this is all about for me. And that's what this is not all about for other people. So, but let's focus on those ideas and not the people.
Well, let me know when you set up an account on there so I can go and follow you on there. So it's pretty.
Maybe later today.
All right, let's do that. That sounds fun. So let's talk a little bit about the fork and what happened afterwards. Like, it seems to me that there was this hash war, and Bitcoin ABC clearly won. There was a lot more hash power, and you'd sort of stepped in and kind of saved the day there. From my perspective,
because people are figuring out, oh, should I use BTC, BCH, Ethereum, Dash? What do I use? There's so many choices, and then people just have choice paralysis because there's so many choices they can't make a choice, so they don't do anything, and they just continue using their Bank of America account. Like, that's the most frustrating part for me about this whole thing. So what's happened in the last couple of months with BCH and BSV? Yeah, that's annoying, but look at the big picture. We're trying to build permissionless money for the entire world, and that got delayed by a bunch of economic central planners who wanted to centrally dictate the amount of block space that the miners are allowed to produce. That's been the real disaster in all of this.
I mean, I push back a little bit about this whole one currency to rule them all rhetoric, because you hear it a lot. And I think it also comes from this kind of Austrian economics background where we're used to people gravitating towards one currency. But this is in a world where currency has been a physical thing. I think that we've been defining money in terms of the tech available at the time, and perhaps we don't need to be thinking in terms of that anymore. We're not being held back by tech where you have to physically transport something, a gold bar somewhere. I mean, it's not feasible for someone to walk around with a bag filled with copper and silver and gold and seashells and whatever else currency might be on offer. But it's pretty easy to have a wallet where, you know, things are very liquid and you don't really understand what's even going on under the hood. You could have some sort of algorithm running your wallet that says, okay, it's most economically in my economic best interest for me to send this currency at this time. If things are not held back by tech, I don't necessarily think that one currency will rule out at the end. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I don't see why it has to be like that.
I think you touched on the right point there, is that we have no idea what's going to happen. And we have no idea what the right size block is, right? The market needs to determine which money to use, and the market needs to determine what the right amount of block space in a block is. And like, rather than have the market determine, the BTC camp thinks that a bunch of central planners are going to determine that 1 megabyte, that is the correct amount of block space. No, we don't know what the right amount of block space is. The market needs to determine that, not a bunch of central planners. And the market needs to determine which cryptocurrency is going to be used by people, not a bunch of Bitcoin maximalists. And
what's your take on the block size that Bitcoin SV are coming out with right now? And they're like 5 trillion terabyte blocks. So like, what's going on there? It seems that they're doing all of these stress testing and all of that. They forked. Didn't they do like some sort of attack on their own chain through one of their stress tests that couldn't handle this? But now they're all saying, oh well, this is great. We've got these giant blocks, which people aren't filling up. So what is your take on what they're doing over there? Have you been paying much attention to it?
I don't know, but I wish them good luck. But I'm not interested in that project because and again, I keep saying we should focus on ideas more than people, but there are figureheads over there, and the figureheads over in the BSV camp are a bunch of people that like to sue people for no reason at all and want to be government friendly. And whereas I think, you know, government is one of the most detrimental things humankind has ever invented. And they literally he was interested in having, you know, a Borat or Ali G style interview in which he could just do everything he could to push 5 buttons, including, you know, just telling outright lies. So if people want to call Bitcoin Cash Bcash, I think that they can do that. Like, I think that's not the name. And there is an actual concerted attempt to try and change the entire name of Bitcoin Cash. And the attempt was from the Bitcoin BTC supporters trying to not have Bitcoin Cash be able to have any of the brand recognition that people like most of the Bitcoin Cash supporters built up for Bitcoin in the early days. So anyhow, him calling it Bcash isn't what made me mad. It was him lying about what I'm up to on the internet that made me really upset. So
have you flipped off anyone else, any other videos since then?
I think that's probably the only time in my entire life. Yeah, so I think that's the only time on camera, certainly, and probably one of the only times ever, in person or I'm having a hard time remembering a time I've given anybody the middle finger, ever.
All right. So I just got a power chat through Big Backer from Dobie Forever. Thank you so much.
Which currency did Dobie use, by the way? Dobie Forever.
Pardon?
Which cryptocurrency did Dobie Forever use? And the duck guy as well. We didn't hear, or the chickens rather.
So Dobie Forever used Bitcoin Cash, and Spencer actually used Smart Cash. So there you go. They've been broadening out. They started as BCH chickens, and so using a lot of BCH, and now they got
and
Smart Cash.
Shout out to ducks.cash as well, his other website where you can feed ducks using, I think, Dash and Smart Cash, I think, are the ones I saw on that one.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of all of that. I think it's just a great example of how to use cryptocurrency super easily. You know, this is new money, but it's new tech as well that enables all of these new things. So it's very, very exciting. So I'm surprised I didn't get as many trolls in this chat as I expected. I was expecting like lots of hatred.
Because it would require them to actually use cryptocurrency. All the trolls never actually use it, and they probably don't have any. So all you have to do to make all the trolls disappear is just require them, even, you know, just a nickel worth of cryptocurrency. They don't have it. So if you require like a nickel per comment, the trolls magically disappear.
Yeah, but one thing I will say, and I'd love your thoughts on this because I know we've got to wrap up. So Tim Pool, for example, had this podcast where he was talking about crypto, and he's getting more and more on board with cryptocurrency as an alternative, simply in the face of all the censorship that's happening from payment processors. Now, this is not something that's new to people who understand cryptocurrency. Like the first Bitcoin bull run happened because WikiLeaks accepted donations, because payment processors shut down services to WikiLeaks. The government, I presume, put pressure on the intermediaries, and they said, okay, we're no longer allowing donations to WikiLeaks. And so they said, all right, we'll accept Bitcoin. And actually Satoshi, they put it off for, I think, a year, because Satoshi was like, it's not ready, you will kill this currency, don't do it yet. And then finally it was implemented, and he was right. There was a giant bull run. People rushed over to the side because they saw that this was an uncensorable money. And right now you have a lot of content creators who are being deplatformed, who are being kicked off Patreon. Naomi Wu is a YouTuber from China, Shenzhen, and she has a great tech show, and she was deplatformed by Patreon. That's her main source of income over there. And so a lot of people being hurt by this, and people are now realizing, Tim Pool, I mentioned him, just has been saying, listen, if you're a content creator, the sooner you learn about cryptocurrency, the better. And there are two paths in this. You could say, all right, well, how do we make tech that's easy for newbies so that they don't ever have to understand crypto, so that it's all done for them, they could just use fiat, but it's all kind of done under the hood so they don't have to jump on board. And there's the other side saying, no, we just need to get these people understanding it, because this is the future. This is the uncensorable money. So which side do you think is best? Do we need better tech that like lessens the friction, or do we need people just to be educated about this and hurry up and come over to our side?
Why not both?
Why not both? That's a good example on there, and he always has the most beautiful landscape in his videos if you check those out. So thank you so much, JR, for that, or Exciting World Cryptos. So Roger, I'm not going to take up much more of your time. Let's wrap this up, and I just want to say thank you for joining me here. You cop a lot of flack in the space, and it's I just at the end, I mean, I know there are a lot of people in this chat who are probably like big haters, and they probably enjoy hating on people and tearing people down. And I just want to say thank you to you, Roger, because you did so much advocacy for Bitcoin in the early days. And I attribute you as being the reason why a lot of people got on board. As we know, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, people have been brought on as this very grassroots organic movement where literally people are brought on one by one and handheld into the future, right? They're shown, okay, I'll give you this tip in cryptocurrency if you set up this wallet. I will, shop at your store if you accept cryptocurrency. I will, it's all one-to-one, peer-to-peer, and you did so much of that and really spread the word. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I know, I don't agree with everything you say, and I think flipping people off.
What have you disagreed with? Can I ask for something specific that you think I'm wrong on?
Okay, all right, I will give you that then. So I asked you in Tokyo about the Bitcoin Cash name, and I actually like your answer this time better. So maybe we do agree on most things, because economically, obviously, I agree with what you say. But you said that you didn't like the idea of something you've worked your whole life towards, being Bitcoin, all of the work you put into that. You didn't like the idea of having to change that name. This is something you built, and you thought that this was the real Bitcoin. That was something that you worked towards. But I think that's kind of sunk cost fallacy. That's the idea of, okay, a lot of effort in.
Yeah, maybe I didn't express myself clearly enough. So I think that Bitcoin Cash has more of the characteristics that make Bitcoin does than BTC does. And so that maybe is my answer. But anyhow, we'll save that for the next time, I think.
Okay.
And
if that's the answer, then maybe we do agree on a lot of things. But I do want to thank you regardless. And I think that you cop a lot of undue hate in the space, but you really like Bitcoin success. A lot of it is attributed to you. So huge thank you for that. Actually, I got another comment. So from Zaphoid, thank you so much, Zaphoid. Actually, I've got a bunch of them here. So
which cryptocurrencies did they use?
Okay, I'll tell you. So Anonymous says, bring the crypto community back together. Oh, that's a great point. Maybe I can ask you how you think we're going to do that. Without, throwing mud or whatever about well, if they stop doing this, but really, how can we do this? I think it's
impossible until the censorship ends. So if there's censorship going on, there's no way to reunite the community, and that's been going on for years now. So
I'll push back there, because censorship is only platform specific. If you're on Bitcoin Reddit thread, for example, that's their platform. They can do whatever they want on there. But that's the wonderful thing about a competing marketplace. You have so many platforms where people can actually talk about ideas and discuss.
Do you really believe that, Naomi?
I absolutely believe that. I see, like, okay, look at my channel, for example. I don't think
So
that
is it a problem that Naomi Wu has had her like YouTube demonetized and Patreon? Like she can just go and use something else.
well, currently she's using BitChute. She's looking into that. She's using Bitbacker. She's building her own platform. So we're going to have even more competition in the marketplace there. You have Peterson and what's his name? Ruben.
Yeah, I know who that's about.
They're going to have another platform out there, so I'm super interested to see what happens there. I really do believe that. I think that you have, like, honestly, people are talking about lawsuits right now with Facebook.
We found something we disagree with. I don't think they should sue over it, but I think that we as the community can speak out about the stuff that's going on. So when they're having selectively saying, oh, if you have this political point of view, you're allowed to do whatever you want, and the rest of you guys, we're going to kick off and deplatform you. Yeah, it's their platform and they can do what they want with it, but the rest of us can say, hey, this is insane. You guys shouldn't be doing that. We should be speaking out about it.
I 100% agree with that. And yes, we can keep speaking out against the censorship, but I don't think your point about we will only come together when they stop censoring is correct. I think that there are lots of platforms where people want to engage. They want to have, I have 2 people in my Telegram group who do rap battles. Like, they start out being these angry people who are like, there was Robert and like it is really, really funny, actually, these 2 people, and Defar, I think that's how you pronounce it, but they'd attack each other all the time. But then it just became, they became friends through this channel, I like to think, and they just actually had talks, civil talks. It's amazing when you encourage that environment of civil discourse, what can happen there. I think that's what's going to bring the community back together. I think that we don't have to force people to not censor. I think we just have to encourage people to platforms where there is no censorship and where civil discourse.
Isn't that the same thing?
It's not the same thing.
Encouraging people to use platforms that don't have censorship, and encouraging current platforms that have censorship to end their censorship. Isn't that the same thing?
That is another option, but I think that's the third option. I think what you were saying at the start was we will only have civil discourse if we shut down, if people stop censoring. And I don't think that's
there's 2 people need to have free and open discussion. I think we agree on that first premise. Yeah. So in order to have free and open discussion, people need to either migrate to platforms that allow free and open discussion, or the platforms that are currently disallowing free and open discussion, stop disallowing it and allow it. So therefore, I only counted 2 there. Where's there 3?
Roger. Let's do it again. All right. So 1, civil discourse, right? 2, people have to migrate over to platforms where civil discourse is encouraged. 3, people have to encourage current censorship-friendly platforms to stop censoring. And I think that if one of those things doesn't happen, I think that doesn't stop people being united and having civil discourse. I think that's just one of the options that could happen, but I don't think it's a prerequisite.
I think we found something we disagree on. Yeah.
All right. Well, we found it then. But I am going to give a shout out to the other people. So that was Anonymous who said that. You have Lambert PF who says who sent Bitcoin Cash. It says awesome interview. Thank you so much for being here. And you have Zapoid who says great to have Roger here, sharing the core of what crypto is really about. Did I mention the core word, Zapoid? Peer-to-peer censorship-proof currency, free of government control. Absolutely, I agree with that. And he sent his money in smart cash. So there you go. But I'm glad we did find something to disagree with. Otherwise, this would have been like too many rainbows and sunshine, and no one likes that. No one would have watched. So I appreciate that. But also, Roger, you should come over to some of the. I think a lot of your life, and maybe this is a presumption of mine, but you engage in the conflict. You don't mind the conflict. I'm someone who like shies away from conflict because I hate it, and maybe that's a weakness of mine. But maybe you don't have to go after the platforms that are censoring people. You don't have to attack them necessarily. Like, feel free, like, come over to some of these platforms where we are having discussions. So I think people would really benefit from listening to you and from hearing your side of things in an environment where people are open to listening to other people, and they're few and far between. They're not common, but I would love to see you on some of these things. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you on Bitbacker as well. Maybe that could be a place where we could have civil discourse, or maybe it'll get overrun with trolls and it will just be like.
As long as the trolls are having to use cryptocurrency to do their trolling, it's just fine with me. So, and that's probably a good place to end this. And I'll end with one actual final tease for the hardcore libertarians that are watching. So we have to end this because I'm on my way to go and have a lunch with Patrick Friedman. So for anybody that's a hardcore libertarian, that name may ring a bell, and maybe you'll have an idea what we're up to. So that's final tease. Thank you very much for today, Naomi. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much, Roger. I really appreciate your time. All right. Thank you so much to everyone in the chat, everyone who sent through their power chats and super chats. Really appreciate it. And have a wonderful day.